This is module number 9, and we're still going to be continuing in learning about some biology, specifically ecology. So the study of our living things in the world and how they interact with the non-living components. Last week you looked at biodiversity and we looked at ecosystems in general, and then I wanted you to have a chance to look at a highly diverse ecosystem, which was the coral reefs. So perhaps you watched that nature video, or maybe you watched the one on the bumblebees, right? The honeybees and some of the things that are threatening their population numbers. Well, this week we're going to delve into the topic of a food chain and a food web. And this might be something you remember from elementary school. It's something we go over again in grade 9 as some of the just basic terminology with regards to how energy flows within an ecosystem. So the first thing you're going to want to work on is having a look at the reading that I've got right here, talking about the difference between a producer, which is something that makes their own food, so a green plant, for example, and a consumer, anything that obtains its energy from something else. Remember, we're consumers, and so are all the other animals. You think about producers as being those magical living things that can make their own food and then use their own food for their own energy. Well, we certainly can't make our own food, so we have to consume our energy from something else, okay? So you're going to delve into food chains and food webs, and this is the reading here where you're going to answer some questions with regards to what are some of the producers, who are the consumers in these food chains, and you can see that the arrow shows the flow of energy. So this really just shows that the energy from the grass goes to the grasshopper, and the energy from the grasshopper goes to the blue jay. All right. The direction of the arrow is really quite important. If it was the other way around, then that really wouldn't make too much sense, right? If the energy from the grasshopper went to the grass, well, that would mean that the grass is eating the grasshopper, and that certainly doesn't happen. All right, so that's one thing to note. On the next page, you're going to see what we call a food web, right? And this shows the interaction among many food chains. And so if you look at where the energy flows, again, you can see the arrows that connect everything. The top consumer in this food web right here is the great horned owl. So can you see how the energy goes from the green plants? And where does that energy come from to begin with? It comes from the sun, right? The sun provides the energy for the plants, and then the plants produce energy in the form of the glucose and the food that they make through that process called photosynthesis, and that energy flows through the food web. Okay, there's a couple of videos you're going to watch, and then the questions that have to do with the food chains and the food webs from this reading are a little more challenging than what we've had previously. So spend a bit of time on that and see if you can really get the good answers for that. So the challenging question at the end of that assignment is for you to take all components of a ecosystem, and I want you to create a food web. So it may be a little tricky to add that into your Google Doc, so you can jot it down on paper and take a picture and maybe insert it in, or you could just use maybe text boxes and some arrows and just do your best, okay? Show me a food web based on what we've got. Once you've done that, that's the activity, or that's the lesson part. I've provided a couple of optional activities for you this week. The outdoor education center, and maybe if you remember going to one of them when you were in grade 3, I think you go again in grade 9. And so unfortunately we didn't get a chance to visit the outdoor education center down in Cambridge called Wrigley's Corners. That's where we would have gone to be able to explore some of the aquatic ecosystem that they have. So they've got a pond there, and we could do a little pond study to see what lives there. Well, what they've done for us is prepared a few backyard biology activities. And so if you're interested in doing something optional this week and you want to get outside, or maybe even just look outside your window, I've provided for you a backyard birding activity. So they did a backyard bird count. And the neat thing about this handout here is that it gives you ways to identify all the birds that you would normally see in and around our area. Okay, so this one's a 2-pager, and you can be able to look at the differences between a nuthatch and a goldfinch. Would you see a turkey vulture? I see them flying around my place all the time, way up in the sky. And so some of the things that characterize characterize different organisms, you can use this sheet to help you. So that was one of the first activities that they provided for us, the backyard bird count. Last week, they were doing a bug blitz. So have a look at this one. This one here shows some of the backyard bugs or bugs that you would find in a forest that's near you, and they wanted you to do a bit of a count. So I just wanted to show you this sheet though so that you could show the difference and figure out what's the difference between a cricket or a grasshopper or a snail or a slug. Earwigs, these are the little guys that have those little claspers at the end of their abdomen, and they sometimes get into your house, don't they? What's the difference between a wasp and a honeybee? Okay, so which bugs can you find? This was an activity that they provided, and so I've posted those sheets on the classroom. Feel free to download them. You can even put them on your phone, so next time you're out for a little nature walk, you could have a look and see if you can identify some of the different species that you can see in your neighborhood. Okay, again, just getting back to that idea of biodiversity, and it's really important that we have a really diverse ecosystem so that if something were to happen to one of the species in our ecosystem, we are able to maintain that balance. Okay, so I hope everything is going well for everybody. I know it's been a bit of a stressful week for a lot of us and a lot of you, and if you're still in it to keep learning and doing a bit of biology with us, that's great. Our next week's topic will be our last biology topic, and we're just going to look at the impact that humans have on sustainable ecosystems. Okay, so have a great week, and I hope you enjoy exploring some of the bugs and the birds. And the other thing they're working on this week is looking at monarch butterflies. So I'll post that one for next week, and you can see if you can spot any butterflies in your neighborhood. Okay, take care, and I'll talk to you next week.